And now catch the word there, formed, right? It's the same word used later on for a potter shaping clay on a wheel. This isn't God speaking from a distance the way he spoke creation into being, the way he spoke light into being back in chapter 1. This is God down in the dirt. This is God down in the dirt, kneeling and shaping. And what's he forming him out of? Right? Notice it's not the gold that that's found in Pishon. It's not anything valuable. It's dust. He's forming him of dust, the stuff you'd wipe off your shoe. And at this point, man isn't alive. Well, he's not, I'd say he's not even a man yet, not in any meaningful sense. He's a shaped lump of clay, if you like. And that's it. So how does this clay, this man that's been formed, become a living being? Verse 7 tells us, again the Lord breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living creature. Do you notice how intimate this is? Right? This isn't like Harry Potter with a wave of the hand or magic spell. This is God, mouth to nostrils, breathing into the dust with the way a father might breathe into a child who isn't breathing. Right? Man's very first experience of anything is God's breath. That's how close it is. Now, so think about what that means for your life and where you come from, right? You didn't create yourself. You're certainly not self-sustaining. You didn't earn your first breath, and you can't manufacture your next one, not really. Every person in this meeting right now has a breath running through them that was never theirs to begin with, borrowed from the very start. I thought of an illustration, and I don't know how helpful this is, but you might even think of a phone. Let's say you bought a phone straight out of the box. It's beautifully made, every feature loaded on. It will not turn on. It will not do a single thing it was built for until it's plugged in, right? All the desire in the world doesn't substitute for the connection. That's Adam in the dust. He is formed, but he is inert. He is still, until the breath connects him to life itself. Now, I want you to hold on to that image because it's going to come back much later on. Breath given, breath withdrawn, and then much later, breath given again. Now, chapter 1 already told us something big, right? Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. Man is made in God's image, bearing his likeness. And after everything is finished, in Genesis 1:31, God looks at what he's made and calls it very good. Now I want you to notice that what the goodness is made of. It's harmony. That goodness is harmony. It's nearness. It's communion with God. And watch what God does next, because I think we missed it. He doesn't hand Adam the keys and say, here it all is, Adam. Go and live your best life however you want. Right? He doesn't just tell Adam to go and live his best life however he wants. No, verse 28 in chapter 1 says, he blesses him and then instructs him. Be fruitful, multiply, have dominion. And then in Genesis 2:15, verse 15 of chapter 2, God takes the man and puts him in the garden to work in and keep it. And that word keep, it's the same word that gets used later on for priests guarding the tabernacle. So Adam isn't just gardening. I don't know what you pictured when you were told that Adam, when you heard that when you read that instruction, right? So Adam isn't just gardening. He's doing something closer to priestly work. He's tending sacred space in the presence of God. God gives good gifts, and then he tells Adam how to actually enjoy them. And then, as the story unfolds, comes the restriction in the whole garden. In verse 16 to 17, it says, you may eat freely of every tree, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. Notice what's actually at stake here. It's life. Life itself is on the table for Adam. Right now in the narrative, Adam has it. Adam has life. He has communion with God. He's in harmony with God. He's in harmony with creation. And the promise, it keeps going as long as he trusts and does what God has told him. It really is that simple, at least on paper. Right? We're all rooting for Adam, maybe. Adam, choose life. And choosing life means listening to God and taking him at his word. That is the good life in Eden, friends. The good life in Eden, according to verse 25 here, is dwelling unashamed before God and one another. Right? Adam and Eve, the two of them naked and not ashamed. Nothing hidden, nothing lacking. But we know how the story goes. That communion, that nearness, that closeness between God and man gets shattered. And Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 says, "And the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field." Now, here's a small thing I think worth pausing on, because it's easy to miss if, with our translations. I had a nosy in the Hebrew. And the Hebrew word for naked back in 225, and the word for crafty in chapter 3 verse 1 have the same root. They come from the same root letters. And I think here it's a deliberate wordplay right at the joint of the story, with one word doing the double duty. And the innocence of the first word, right? The innocence of the first word thickens into the danger of the second with a